All right, so the front is done. Now it is time for the rear. Let us show you how we're going to accomplish lowering the rear 4 inches. So first of all, there are lift blocks between the axle and the leaf spring. We will be taking those out to get rid of the lift. Then we move on to shackle. So in there right now, the shackle that's in there is probably about half the height of this. When we install this, the end of the leaf spring will mount up here. So that mounts up 2 inches higher, therefore pulling the axle 2 inches higher up. And so that is how we achieve 2 inches of drop. Then at the front, the other 2 inches come from this bad boy right here. This is the hanger mount for the front of the leaf spring. So the leaf spring goes in here. This is what the stock one looks like. This is where this one mounts. So it brings that mounting point up higher again, therefore pulling the axle higher up, and therefore lowering the pickup truck. And a thing to note on this one, there is round holes here and elongated holes right on this side. And that is a wonderful thing because on my 97 F150, I did a 3/4 drop on that truck as well. And I had hangers, and these holes were round on this side instead of elongated, and the holes did not line up. And because there's not much meat on here, I had to elongate the holes on the frame. So I'm very glad that Belltech has updated their hanger to address this issue, because I don't want to be drilling this afternoon. So let us get under the truck. We will start probably with the lift shackle, because that's the easiest. All right, so I lied. We're starting with the lift block. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take out these bolts here. This is a 3-inch lift, so we're gonna take that out. This shim goes in there because we're lowering the vehicle. We need to change the pinion angle of the truck, or the rear diff, sorry. And this is a 6-degree wedge. And as per the instructions, you put the tall part of the wedge facing forward. So we will slide in like this. There's a locating pin at the bottom of the leaf spring that will kind of locate this guy. And we will put in new U-bolts. And these are a whole heck of a lot shorter than those guys because these are longer to accommodate that lift. We don't want to cut off any bolts, and they come with brand new ones, so why wouldn't you use the new ones? So let us put in some earplugs and do some impacting. All right, so finally got those nuts off of the U-bolts. Now, I started trying with my impact, and sometimes they won't let go because they are a locking nut. So this one is a nylon locker nut. The other style you might see is essentially the threads look like they're an oval, so it's like a friction fit, and it locks the nut in there. And when you have locking nuts, they don't like to be impacted sometimes, and sometimes you just need to use steady pressure. So I had to use the strong arm and just normal hand tools to get those out, because I had my Matco 1/2-inch impact gun on them. They were not budging. So sometimes you just gotta do it the old-fashioned way. So we are gonna get these 3-inch blocks out here and install a new wedgie and put new U-bolts in. So one thing that you need to do, you got to replace the stud or this bolt in the leaf spring, because this nub right here is too short when you put the degree wedge in between the axle and the spring. So you have to upgrade the bolt. New bolt, never a bad thing. And this spacer helps stick this down so it will go into the pocket on the axle. So easiest way to do this, get your vice grip on here. If you use an impact gun, it might actually be harder to do because this is a lock nut on here. So I'm gonna take this off. And it's just that easy. Actually, I didn't even need to use the vice grip so far. Hasn't even moved. Okay. Then, take my trusty dusty hammer. And we'll hit that out of there. Slide this new guy back in. Slide it back in nice and easy. Oh, there we go. All right, and then torque the new nut to, it says 80 to 93 foot-pounds. And the whole process feels like you're stretching the bolt. But trust me, take it nice and slow. It'll get there eventually. It's just a little nerve-wracking at times. So, you know how I was like, hey, torque this leaf spring bolt to 88 foot-pounds of torque? Don't. Those bolts, they're fine thread. And as I was tightening them, I'm like, man, this feels kind of like it's not like stretching the bolt or something, because I have a Matco torque wrench and it shows how much torque you're actually applying to the torque wrench. It has a digital readout and it got to 60. I'm like, man, this seems like it's not getting any tighter. And then all of a sudden it started showing 50 and then it broke. So yeah. I got a new center pin bolt for the leaves, and then I just went hand tight, nice and snug, good and tight, because the spring pressure is gonna hold that nut from backing off. Plus you have those leaf springs clamped on there with the U-bolts for the axle. So yeah, torque spec is not, yeah. Don't go 80 to 93 foot-pounds of torque on that center pin bolt for the leaf springs. I did email Belltech. Haven't heard anything back yet, but if I do, I will post it in the bottom there. And yeah, time to put this leaf spring in the truck and then put it on the ground. All right, so we've ran into a little bit of a snag here now. We've started on removing that shackle. And that bottom bolt in this guy is messed up. It will not come out. So if you look at here on the new shackle, there's a rubber bushing. There's a metal sleeve inside of it. Well, that shackle has been on the truck since 2001. The truck has 360,000 kilometers on it. And over time, those get rusty and the bushing gets dried and cracked and all that fun stuff. So when we were trying to get that bolt out and turn the bolt, what happened was this sleeve is rusted to the bolt. So that sleeve just turns and ripped away from that rubber bushing. So the nut is off the back side of that bolt, but that sleeve, that metal sleeve, is keeping it from coming out. So what we're gonna have to do, we're gonna have to cut the bolt ends in between the frame there of the shackle mount. So essentially we'll cut it there, and then this is a new bolt. Correction, old new bolt. This is from the front suspension, from the upper control arm. Because we put the alignment kit in, we don't need these guys anymore, but it's the same strength as the bolt that's in it right now. So gonna have to bring out the Sawzall and manhandle this, and I have new hardware at least anyway. So here goes nothing. Alright, so working on the hanger, sorry for the shaky camera work. This rivet there, and then there's two more on the other side. You have to get those out with an air hammer. So, technique for that is take a cutoff wheel. You can cut an X, or if you have a really good air hammer, you can just air hammer the heads off and put one of these flat chisels on there and go to town. So, you chisel off the heads, and then I'll show you what happens after that bracket is removed. Alright, so we got the hanger out of the way. We got all the heads off of there. So this is what they're gonna look like now. So now, don't air hammer quite yet, because if you air hammer this is gonna mushroom out and it won't want to come out. So what you're gonna have to do is shave off these heads. I use my air hammer again to destroy them with the flat blade on there. And this air hammer is pretty darn good. I believe it's called the Silver Eagle, and yeah, she hammers with authority. So we're gonna hammer those out, and then we'll go to the pointy bit and drive those through the frame, and they'll go just like butter, hopefully. Oh, you got your earplugs in? Yeah, put your earplugs in, because it's gonna be loud. Okay, so now we switch to the pointy bit, and they should come out nice and easy. Yeah! Alright, now we're ready for the leaf spring to go in. Just want to show you what everything looks like in place. So those bolts right there on the hanger, those were torqued to 100 foot-pounds. They have locking nuts on them, and washers, they're not coming off. Then, where this eye bolt is for the front of the leaf spring, I actually had to drill out the bracket. The hole wasn't big enough for the bolt to fit through on this side. This side was just fine, so I don't know what happened there. But I'm not too surprised, because whenever there's something custom, doesn't always go together. But then onto the axle, boom, we have our 6-degree wedge so that we have correct pinion angle, and the big side is pointing forward. And then we have our shackle in the back, and of course for maximum lowness I'm going to attach it to the top bolt hole there, and we will adjust if necessary, but pretty sure that's gonna be just fine. So let us heave that leaf spring into place. Alrighty, so here she is. This is my pickup truck in its lowered state. It's a 2001 F150 4x4, as you recall. And yeah, so in the front, yeah, torsion bar keys. We made a video of the front suspension. I'll have a link at the end of the video. And so initially, I set up everything on the lowest setting. So front torsion bar keys, I barely had a turn on the bolt. In the rear, lowering shackle, lowering hanger. I had the lowering shackle on the lowest setting, and driving it just was way too bouncy in the front suspension. I don't know if it was torsion bars, not having enough tension on the torsion bars, or maybe it was, I think maybe the shock was in not a good range. But at any rate, had to raise the suspension a bit. So on the rear shackle, I raised it up 1 notch, and then that raised it 3/4 of an inch, and then I adjusted the front accordingly. So I think I got it to the proper height, and yeah, I'm quite happy with the way it came out. It drives nice and smooth actually. It's really smooth, not too bumpy. I did not wreck the truck, which I was a little worried about doing. And yeah, missing the front wheel cover there. That came loose somewhere, so I'll find one over the winter and replace that. But yeah, I love the look of the 20-inch Harley Davidson wheels. Looks great on these pickup trucks. A lot of performance there, repping it. Belltech, CP Automotive. I got all my stuff. Boom. This is the finished product. I'm very happy with it. Yeah, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. And yeah, and like as always, like and subscribe. And if it ain't broke, go drive it.